شما خیر آمیدی هموتان بخیر هاتین هون همو بخیر هاتن. Kurd-Akad UK welcomes you to another seminar today. Thank you all for sparing your time to take part, especially our presenters, our four presenters. I will briefly talk about what is Kurd-Akad. It might not be familiar to all of you. Kurd-Akad UK, the network of Kurdish academics and professionals in the UK, was established in November last year, following the Kurd-Akad organizations in Germany and Switzerland. There is a plan to establish further Kurd-Akads in other European countries in coming years. Currently, there are 2-3 Kurd-Akads are in the process of establishing themselves in Europe. As the Kurd-Akad UK, we had planned to represent all parts of Kurdistan here in the UK with our members, type of seminars, and presenters in our seminars. We can proudly say that we have managed to do so up to date, and we aim to continue bringing all the voices and colors of Kurdistan to our platform. Following our establishment in November 2019, we have had a series of seminars and workshops. The last 3 months have not been as productive for the obvious reasons of coronavirus pandemic. Our latest seminar on Hussein Cave, which was going to take place in March, early March, was cancelled as it was going to be an actual seminar at SOAS University in London. For the health reasons, technical reasons, it was postponed with advice by the university. Now that we discovered this Zoom platform, we are holding this seminar with slogan of Ziman Welat, which means language is homeland. This seminar was originally planned to take place around 15th of May. 15th of May is Jajni Zmani Kurdi, Kurdish Language Day. It's celebrated throughout Kurdistan. But again, for the reasons of COVID-19, it was delayed. Today, I have to remind you that it will be some sort of introductory level of Kurdish language situation to honor the Kurdish Language Day with delay for a month. So the average participants, because it's from different backgrounds, we've kept it introductory level and mostly symbolic, but we are planning to do more of similar ones in the future with more in-depth. We aim to organize seminars on monthly basis. The next seminar will be either the postponed Hassan Cave or something on situation of COVID-19 and its effects in parts of Kurdistan. So far that we like to remind you, so for that reason, we like to remind you to follow us on our Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram platforms. And if you'd like to be included in our email list, please get in touch with us. Most of the contacts are on the seminar poster that we've advertised on different platforms. But if you don't have one, we also have the chat group in this Zoom platform today. you're more than welcome to drop your questions regarding anything. Now, I don't like to take too much time. I'll go to our speakers. The first speaker is Mamaste Ronayi Onen, who joins us from Istanbul. Ronayi Onen, you're welcome. Ronayi works as a teacher in Istanbul, and she is at the completion stage of her PhD in sociology at the Mimar Sinan Fine Arts University in Istanbul. Her PhD is titled Kurdish Language in 2000s, Practices, Policy, and Activism. She had obtained her MA in Cultural Studies at Istanbul Bilgi University. The title of her MA was The Role of Language in Discursive Construction of a Nation, a case study on Kurdish journal Hewa, 1932-1943. Her CV is quite long and extensive. If I read all of it, that might mean that I steal the time of speakers, including herself. But I'll just highlight the main ones. Teacher Training Program in Kurdish Language, Istanbul Kurdish Institute, 2004. Certificate in Kurdish Language in Advanced Degree. Some of the work experience, she worked at Istanbul Bilgi University as a Kurdish instructor between 2009 and 2018. She has been working as a Kurdish instructor at Istanbul Kurdish Institute since 2005. Worked as a volunteer instructor with Kurdish children immigrated to Istanbul from Kurdish regions between 2007 and 2010. Built and worked at at Istanbul Bilgi University Kurdology Study Unit 2013-2016, between 2013 and 16. Some of just little sense of her publications. Hinker, many of you, I believe, are familiar with Hinker, a series of three course books to be used in Kurdish language teaching classes. Istanbul Kurdish Institute, it was published under that in 2009, and have been republished 3 times since then. Again, there's a long list. If you don't mind, Ronayi, I will stop here and give you the voice. Otherwise, it might take all the 2 hours of the seminar. Thank you, and the floor is yours now.
Hi, everybody. I am Ronayi from Istanbul. I'm going to speak about Kurdish language activism in especially 2000. Before starting my speech, can I share my screen with us? Any attempt or any action to spread the language use and to increase the consciousness of language. And I also mean with language activism, putting any attempt that try to put a pressure on political actors to change their language policies. When we speak about Kurdish language activism in general, it aimed to reverse the language shift which occurred against Kurdish language in favor of Turkish. And this aim of Kurdish language activism included the struggle against both pragmatic and symbolic sovereignty of Turkish. The pragmatic dimension is that it's about utilizing Kurdish to make it capable of being education and official language. And the symbolic dimension of language activism is about making Kurdish language gain its symbolic value, which has been lost for a long time. When we speak about Kurdish language activism, it's a multi-dimensional activism actually, and it's also multi-actors. I cannot speak about all the actors that are the component of language activism occurred in Baku. So I am going to limit my speech with only some curricular landmarks occurred in 2000. Why 2000? Actually, language activism, Kurdish language activism, dates back to very beginning of 20th century, but because of the time limit, I'm not going to talk about its background because I believe that it started with those intellectuals who wrote on the periodicals at the very beginning of 20th century because they were thinking and writing about Kurdish language, but I'm not going to anyway talk about those times. Why I am going to talk about the 2000s, because in 2000s, Kurdish language activism was massified and it yet an actual movement in 2000s. What happened in 2000s that language movement, language activism started in Baku? First of all, in 1999, as you all know, negotiations between Turkey and European Union started. Turkey was a candidate membership for European Union. And as a requirement of this candidacy, Turkey has to improve its minority policy. In this case, they started with some reform in language policy and they lifted some bans on language. The government lifted some bans on languages in some certain areas. What areas? Like media, law, politics, and education. In media, they let broadcasting in Kurdish, both state TVs and also private TVs. And in law area, they let people to defend themselves in the in Kurdish in the courts. And in politics, they let politicians to speak, to propagate in Kurdish while speaking to Kurdish people. And in education, they did more than this. They accept, of course, I'm going to talk about accept the right for education in mother tongue. They lifted the bans on teaching Kurdish, actually, in private courses, first of all. Then they put elective courses, elective Kurdish courses in the curriculum of primary schools and universities. And also they opened some language and culture departments at universities. These are the reforms that the government made in the years 2000s. These reforms, of course, contributed to the visibility of Kurdish language in public sphere in 2000s, and they also opened some sphere for Kurdish language movement, some sphere for Kurdish language activism. Of course, Kurdish language activism wasn't motivated with these reforms, wasn't only motivated with these reforms. There were some other motivation for Kurdish language activism in 2000s. One of them was the transformation of the discourse of Kurdish movement. As you all know, with the arrest of its leader, to seek for a solution, to raise your anything, Mithat? Is it okay now?
We could not hear you for just a bit, but it's fine now.
Okay.
It seems.
Okay, so there were two things: the reforms that were made by the government and the changing discourse of Kurdish movement. Language activism occurred in 2000s, and the first move of this language activism was petitions from university students. They handed some petitions to the rectors demanding elective courses, elective Kurdish courses to be put on the curriculum. As you may already know, most of were persecuted and expelled from the universities, and they also lost their scholarships as well. But after a short time, the government lifted the ban on teaching any language other than Turkish, including Kurdish as well. So after this move, a lot of Kurdish courses were opened in both Kurdish region and also the big cities like Istanbul, Izmir, and Ankara. But interestingly, after a short time in 2005, all the Kurdish courses were closed at the same time, and the responsible people declared that they were closing these courses because no one should learn his or her mother tongue at private courses, and they declared that from now on they were going to start a language movement demanding cultural and linguistic rights for Kurdish people. And after some discussions about what shall be done, I think they decided to take action and build a Kurdish language and education movement, which name was Tevgera Ziman Welat, as you already have heard about it. Tevgera Ziman Welat announced, which is a movement, Kurdish movement of language and education, announced their aim. They announced their aim as to spread the use of language among Kurdish people, to increase the consciousness of language among Kurdish people, and also put a pressure on the government to provide linguistic rights. In a short time, they started a campaign calling Kurdish people to use Kurdish in their whole life. Especially, they put pressure on Kurdish politicians to use Kurdish, because they were accusing Kurdish politicians helping assimilation policies of the government by speaking Turkish to Kurdish people. And also they were putting pressure on the cultural actors like writers who were writing in Turkish, etc. And then they started in order to spread the use of Kurdish, they started to give Kurdish lessons in many cities from Kurdish region, and as well as Istanbul, Izmir, Ankara, the big cities. By these courses, they reached thousands of people. I was a Kurdish instructor at Istanbul University, and I know that each semester we had 300 or 400 students apply to learn Kurdish. So it's a big number. And what else they did, in order to make Kurdish language visible in public sphere, they did a lot. They used billboards. They organized conferences, seminars, feasts, and festivals. They use festivals as a meeting point for young, especially young Kurdish people, with academics, writers, musicians, artists, etc. And they did some practical things in practice. For example, they put price tags on the greengrocers and the other shopping store, and these actions, all these actions aim to make Kurdish language more visible. And they also gave open lectures on the streets and neighborhoods to increase the awareness of Kurdish language as well. But their biggest move, their biggest action was the campaign for education in mother tongue. In 2008, in September, when the school opened, they announced that they were going to start a campaign for education, demanding education in mother tongue. And this campaign included demonstrations in the streets, and again, feasts and festivals, and again, open courses in the streets, and more. It included a boycott of Turkish schools. They wanted parents not to send their children to Turkish schools for a week. And this campaign repeated every year from 2008 until 2014. And in 2014, there was something different. When they announced again the campaign in 2014, they said that Kurdish people are not without alternatives. They were going to build their alternatives by their hands, and they are opening schools which will give education in Kurdish with name free schools. They started in 3 regions like Diyarbakir, Cizre, and Yüksekova. When they opened at the first day of the schools, these schools, the authorities closed down its doors because they said it wasn't, they didn't apply officially to the Ministry of Education. So the next day, the activists opened the doors again, and the next day the government closed, and it continues like that for a while. Then they applied officially, and they got a permanent permission. So what happened next? In 2016, these schools were closed with lots of other institutions related to Tezepe Kurdi. But with these campaigns of demanding education in mother tongue, what did they do? They spread the language use because, and they increased the consciousness of language among Kurdish people. Actually, Kurdish people, it was the first time Kurdish people walked for their linguistic rights, for their language. It was the first time they walked for their language. So it was important, and it also massified the language activism. It spread the language activism at the bottom, I think. And it also made Kurdish language more visible among Kurdish people as well. Another thing, they put the education in mother tongue issue into the Turkey's agenda. I remember those times, there were some discussion programs on mainstream television channels discussing the possibility of education in Kurdish, and inviting like some Kurdish MPs and the other academics, etc. They were discussing the possibility of education in Kurdish. Then what happened? All the institutions were closed in 2016, and for a while, language activism got silenced. But then in 2019, Kurdish political and cultural actors started to build new networks for Kurdish language activism. One was built by some Kurdish political parties like ÖSP, HDP, PDK, and PSK, named Kurdish Language Platform. They declared their aim as to spread the use of language and called authorities to provide linguistic rights for Kurdish people. The other was a network built by some civil and political actors from different backgrounds, named Kurdish Language and Cultural Network. They again declared their aim as to spread the use of Kurdish language and put a pressure on the authorities to take action about Kurdish people's linguistic rights. It's early to make any comment about these two platforms. We'll see what they will do in the future. Tezepe Kurdi was a civil movement backed, of course, by Kurdish movement. And for a time, it was the main actor in the field of Kurdish language activism. And I think they contributed a lot to the field, but they weren't only the actors contributed to the language activism in Bakur. There were lots of cultural and political actors as well, like publishing houses, writers, musicians, working both individually and collectively. They contributed a lot to the language activism. Institutions like Beşikçi Foundation and Kurdkal, and also all the departments of Kurdish language and culture at universities contributed to the field a lot. And there are also some civil actors who work individually in small groups as language activists, whom I want to mention about in a short time. How much time I have? I don't know. I don't. Okay. Okay, what are these civil actors in Kurdish language activism field? For example, there are some reading clubs which gathers in some certain cafes in big cities or the towns in Kurdish region. They come together and speak Kurdish and try to spread the use of Kurdish. They do some roundtable meetings and inviting some Kurdish writers, artists, and musicians. They also organize some signature days at these cafes. I think this is a kind of Kurdish language activism raised from the bottom. And also social media these days is another Kurdish language activism sphere, because they build this social media as a sphere of resistance. Have a look on Şengül Oğur's tweet. He says that let's make Twitter as a sphere of resistance and whether Kurdish language with your tweets. Take action for your language by writing in Kurdish. And there are many of the examples of who says speak in Kurdish, write in Kurdish, and read in Kurdish. I think this is a kind of language activism, civil language activism, coming from the bottom as well. And what's the situation now? The situation is that there is still abuse of language rights by the government, because Kurds are still deprived of their linguistic rights as a collective being, especially the education in mother tongue rights. And the Kurdish language isn't recognized constitutionally, as you all know, and doesn't have any official status still. So we can say Kurdish language is still in danger of that, and the assimilation policy are still going on, while there is also resistance to save the language. There is also resistance to save the language. We'll see what will happen, but the results from the field works is not so, let's say, is not so good, because when we look at some researches from the fields, we see that the assimilation policy is on the work, and there is language laws between the generations that shows that for example, young parents do not transform the language, do not transmit the language to their children. And just a short one, and I'm going to finish it. For example, a fieldwork from Rawest Research Center shows that they made a fieldwork with, I think, 1,547 people who define themselves as Kurds, both in two dialects, Kurmanj and Kurmanj. So 48% of them speak to their parents in Kurdish. These, by the way, these are the middle-aged parents who have got children aged between 3 and 13. The 48% of them say that they speak Kurdish with their parents, while only 13% of them say they speak to their children in Kurdish. So this is a very big gap. It means that language loss is on the work in Baku. This is the situation. Let's finish without making Mithat angry with me. If you have any questions, I can make it more clear then.
Thank you very much, Master Ronayi, for this very useful talk. I'm sure many of us have benefited from it a lot. And yes, the question and answer session is going to be quarter past 8 here, 10 in your time zone. Please be around, but make sure you're back to your screen then. And we welcome all the audience to ask any questions they may have. I know for experts like this, 15 minutes is not long, but this is how it has to be. Thank you very much once again, Ronayi.
Thank you.
Master Hewa.
بله استه گهداری تمام
بخیر هاتی جار کردن. You welcome Dr. Hewa Khalid I'll just quickly read most important part of his bio. Again, he has a long one, but we don't have time to go through all of it today. Hewa Khalid works as a lecturer at Kurdish Language Department, Koya University in southern Kurdistan, northern Iraq. He had finished his PhD in Kurdish language and culture at the Dicle University in Bakur, what they also call southeastern Turkey. His thesis title was Teaching Kurdish as a Second Language. He had obtained his MA in Kurdish Studies, University of Exeter here in the UK. His BA was in Kurdish language and literature at Koya University, where he teaches currently. His most recent publication is called Nowroz from Kurdish and Persian Perspectives, a comparative study which was published this year in Journal of Ethnic and Cultural Studies. Some of his other publications, he has Hinker version for teaching Central Kurdish Sorani, Kurdish language, its family and dialects in Kurdish Kurmanji, which was published in Kurdiname. The history of teaching Kurdish as a second language, which was presented as a paper at a conference. Kurdish dialects continuum as a standardization solution, and many other. I'm sorry, Mamaste Hewa, we don't have time to go through all of it, similarly like with Ronayi Khan's. So the floor is yours. Please try to stick to your 15 minutes. If not, on the 15th minute, I will have to say wrap it up in 2 minutes. Thank you.
It's okay. Hello, everyone. Actually, it is a great opportunity to be with you and talk about Kurdish language. I'll try to manage my time and do not make you angry. Thanks for Ronayi and for the great presentation that she presented about Kurdish language in northern Kurdistan or Turkish Kurdistan or whatever you call it. So I want to share my screen and let's start. So I think now it's okay, yeah.
Yes,
okay.
Your screen is shared with us.
That's great. Okay, I'm going to talk about Kurdish language in Kurdistan region of Iraq. My presentation is a little bit different from Ronayi one because Kurdish language here is a formal language, and let's see. First, make it bigger. Yeah. Okay, first let's see the Kurdish dialects. In Kurdistan, as you see here in northern Kurdistan, most people speak in Kurmanji or northern Kurdish, we call it, and central Kurdish is here, mostly is spoken in Iraqi Kurdistan and Iranian Kurdistan, southern Kurdistan or eastern Kurdistan. There are many words to say the same, and I please and southern Kurdish, which is mostly spoken in Iran. So the fourth dialect, which is Gorani and Zazaki, we always categorize it like that because some linguists believe that they near each other, and some others say, okay, Haurami here and some Kakais here and Zazaki in north. It is, this dialect is everywhere. So the other three were categorized according to Kurdistan geography, and they put it Gorani and Zazaki together to make it the fourth dialect. And this purple one is a mixed, the mixed area. So Now I'm going to talk about this part of Kurdistan, which is called Southern Kurdistan or Iraqi Kurdistan. As you see, all the dialects are available here. People mostly are speaking in Central Kurdish or Sorani, while there are Kurmanjis. Here, the Kurmanji subdialect in Kurdistan region of Iraq is called Bahdini, and we have some Hawramis here. And Southern Kurdistan, there's also Southern Kurdish, which is spoken in Khanaqin and Badra and Jassan and in south of Kurdistan. So there are also Kakais living around Mosul. They live here, and Kakais and Hawramis are in the fourth group of Kurdish dialects, which is Gorani and Zazaki. So let's just now a little bit about history, Kurdish language history in this part of Kurdistan, because it is very important to understand the Kurdish language situation here, because as Ronayi talked about Kurdish language in Turkey, it was banned, and here in Iraq, the situation is something else. After the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, this part of Kurdistan linked with Iraq. Iraqi Kurds revolted against this division, and as you may know, there were Sheikh Mahmoud revolution. Later, British mandate of Iraq agreed to provide some cultural and linguistic rights. So the British authority also printed Peshkotan newspaper in Suleymania, which was in the 20s of the last century. And this newspaper had a great impact on Kurdish language in general. So Suleymania was the center of Kurdish nationalism in southern Kurdistan, and later became the center for all Kurdistan as well. And the dialect of Suleymania has become the language of Kurdish intellectuals in Iraq. So after the Iraqi revolution, I'm just touching the time, the important time is a little bit quickly because we don't have enough time. After the Iraqi revolution and changing Iraqi system in 1958 from monarchy system to republic system, the Directorate of Education, of Kurdish Education or of Education in Kurdish was opened in Baghdad. So they tried to make Kurdish the language for education in Kurdistan region of Iraq. At that time, it wasn't recognized. One of the main points in Kurdish Iraqi peace process in the 1970s was studying in Kurdish language. It is called Rekautaname Azar or Azar peace process between Mullah Mustafa Barzani and the Iraqi government. At that time, Kurdish language was one of the points, and studying Kurdish was very important for Kurds. So the language of education in Suleymania, Arbil, and some parts of Kirkuk changed into Kurdish Duhok also. But later, some tribes in Duhok refused to study in Kurdish. The reason behind this was actually because of the economic factor, because Kurdish, when you at that time somebody knows Kurdish, do not know Arabic, so it becomes a problem, and they could not get a job. So Kurdish wasn't economic language, I mean, to get money. After the 1991 Kurdish uprising in Iraq, Kurdish language became the formal language of Kurdistan region of Iraq. So after this event in 1991, Kurdish became the formal language of Kurdistan of Iraq. But when we say Kurdish, okay, which Kurdish? Somebody might ask. Education and governance is in Kurdish, but which dialect? Because of the historical factors, political activities, etc., Central Kurdish has become the formal language of Kurdistan region, while Badini, or which is the subdialect of Kurmanji, also wanted to compete, and in the 1997 they converted education into Kurmanji. So Badini, which is a Kurmanji sub-dialect, supported by KDP, which is the ruling party in Kurdistan region of Iraq, and they changed the education into Bahdini in Duhok province, while the same chance has not given to the other dialects, for example, Hawrami and Southern Kurdish. The key problem there is that the education in Duhok was not in standard Kurmanji. It was in Badini accent, which raised a new issue for Kurdish language. So, I mean, nowadays, education in Duhok province is in Bahdini. It is it is a subdialect of Kurmanji, but its alphabet is different. I mean, they write in Arabic alphabet, and it is so it raises a new problem. I mean, now I'm sorry about what's happened. Okay, it raises the alphabet issue. Alphabet issue is also one of the main problems for Kurdish language, because Central Kurdish, Southern Kurdish, and Gorani dialects use modified Arabic alphabet, while Northern Kurdish, I mean Kurmanji and Zazaki, use Latin alphabet, except Bahdini subdialect of Kurmanji. So the alphabet has become the contemporary issue of Kurdish language. A group of Kurdish scholars, mainly in Iraqi Kurdistan, have signed a petition in 2012 to recognize Central Kurdish and its alphabet as a standard Kurdish language, formally in KRG, while another group, mainly in Turkey Kurdistan or in Bakur, rejected their petition, and they asked KRG, or Kurdistan region of Iraq, to do not accept such demands. I mean, so the alphabet became the real issue for both sides, because nowadays people in Kurdistan region who study in Kurdish, they cannot read the writings, books, and etc. In Northern Kurdish or in Kurmanji, because Kurmanji is written in Latini, while Central Kurdish is in modified Arabic alphabet. Let's talk about the last situation in Iraq or in Iraqi Kurdistan. I mean, nowadays, other Kurdish dialects are under Central Kurdish influence, or what you call Sorani. Both Gorani and Southern Kurdish in Iraqi Kurdistan are slowly melting within Central Kurdish, and I mean, the chance which is given to Bahdini, it is not given to Gorani and Southern Kurdish, which is a big problem for Kurdish language. Let's say language is just like some linguists say language is just like skiing on snow. When you speak it, you feel it. So the Kurds in other parts, in particular Kurds in Turkey, cannot use their language in education, and even Kurmanji has been banned in public in Turkey for many years, as my friend Ronayi talked about it. So there are many Kurds, they do not know their language, and it is very difficult to understand the other dialects of Kurdish. There are some researches about that. For example, one of them, Ergin Opangan, argued that Kurdish dialects are not mutually understandable, but according to my latest research, it is not the case in Kurdistan region of Iraq, because here education is mainly in Kurdish. And Central Kurdish plays like a lingua franca for all Kurdish dialects in Kurdistan region of Iraq. Another fact is that Kurds in Eastern Kurdistan or in Iranian Kurdistan, they also speak Central Kurdish, and they have had a great impact on Kurdish language in southern Kurdistan. Most Kurds in Iranian Kurdistan, they know their language, and Kurdistan Republic in Mahabad also has had a great impact here. So these factors make Kurdish dialect is mutually understandable here, while in other parts, in particular in Bakur, it is not the case. I just want to show this. I did this research at Koya University, mutual understanding among Kurdish dialect speakers at Koya University. I mean, the participants were students. Here we have Central Kurdish. Almost all Hawrami speakers, they speak Central Kurdish very well, while Central Kurdish speakers have difficulties to understand Hawrami. As we said, it's gaining and it's melting. For Northern Kurdish, I mean, it is easier for Central Kurdish speakers, and Northern Kurdish speakers also can speak Central Kurdish in Iraqi Kurdistan. And I mean, Central Kurdish is just become center for all the dialects here. So it is the case. I did this research, and here Central Kurdish become the lingua franca, and it is recognized by Iraqi government as a formal language of Iraq, and it is printed on money, on passport and ID, etc. So it was my presentation and the situation in Iraqi Kurdistan. Thanks for your attention.
Dr. Hewa, spas bo amkati to amro. Thank you very much for being right on time as well. It have taught me a lot personally, and I'm sure the others will think in line. So, Farangis Khan.
Hello, hi.
Yes, Dr. Farangis Ghaderi, thank you very much for taking your time to participate today. As we're already behind with the time, I'll go straight to your very short. You've been too humble today when sending me your bio. Dr. Farangis Ghaderi is postdoctoral research fellow at the Center for Kurdish Studies, University of Exeter. She holds a PhD in Kurdish Studies, University of Exeter here in UK, and an MA in English literature in Tehran, Iran. She has taught Kurdish Sorani and Persian at the University of Exeter, and is the author of several peer-reviewed articles on Kurdish literature and co-editor of Kurdish Language academic journal called Darwaze. Farangis, the floor is yours, and you have 15 minutes today. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you very much. I'm going to share, hopefully you will see my PowerPoint. Yeah?
Yes, it's here, yes.
Okay. Sorry, just 1 minute. Hello everyone. Thank you, Kurd-Akad, for organizing this session and for inviting me. And my greetings to all friends and colleagues and everyone who has joined us tonight. Well, at this difficult time and also late in the day, definitely in the UK, and I guess in most part it will help. So I was asked very kindly to take part, and I was asked to keep it introductory and short. So I hope I will do that. I'm not a linguist.
Farangis, sorry, can I cut you? Could you please make your screen full. Oh yeah, it's better now. Thank you.
Yeah, apologies. So my expertise is literature, so I would start with reciting you I think one of my most favorite verses in Kurdish, and I'll explain why. And it is in Hawrami. So the poet is Khanai Qubadi, who was an 18th century poet. I recite the poem. پیچش ندوران ای دنیای بدکش محسوزن هر کس و زبان ویش راستن مواجان فارسی شکرن کردی جلای من بل شیرین ترن. For some reason in this cruel world, everyone is happier with their language. Although it is said that Farsi is sugar, Kurdish is much sweeter if you ask me. Now, Khanai Qubadi, this is the introductory section of his epic, which he completed in 1740. And Khanai Qubadi was here really following the tradition of classical poets who often explained or felt the urge, the need to explain why they have chosen to write in Kurdish, because Kurdish was not a medium of literary expression as Persian was, or as Arabic and Turkish was. So it was deemed less worthy. So they often felt, the classical poets, to explain why they are doing such an odd task. And some of you are probably familiar or have heard of very famous explanation of Ahmad Khani, and some other for instance, very famous explanation by Sorani poets such as Nali. For me, Khanai Qubadi really stands out because for me personally, the way I see it is that reasoning falls short. So whereas Ahmad Khani or some other poets have tried to reason that, yes, you know, we will do this so that we cultivate Kurdish, or so that the others won't say that we are not an educated nation. The reason for Khanai Qubadi is inexplicable. It's for some reason you're just happier with your language, and that's your basic human right. This poem was written in Hawrami or Gorani. Gorani is used by linguists as more generic term. And this was the language that was cultivated under the patronage of the Ardalan Principality in the Persian Empire. It was cultivated, it is believed to be, or arguably, the oldest literary tradition, because its cultivation or its development as a literary language goes back to the 15th or 16th century. And so it's the oldest, and it continued. It was really a lingua franca, one could say, of Kurds in the Persian Empire, and it was also used as the language of the court in, for instance, in Kurdish principalities in the Ottoman Empire, such as Baban. And this continued to the mid-19th century until the Persian king adopted the centralization policy, which led to the demise of the Ardalan, the house of Ardalan, the dynasty of Ardalan. And as a result, we witnessed very swift and very dramatic decline of the Gorani language. And so this is the trajectory, or the development of the Kurdish literary dialects up to the late 19th century, Gorani and then Kurmanji, and later in the late 18th century, early 19th century, Sorani. So Sorani was the last to emerge, but was fortunate in the sense that its development was not interrupted the way that Gorani was completely. And it wasn't, or Kurmanji was, as you know, in the ban, as a result of the ban in Turkey and in Syria. So it was fortunate that it had an uninterrupted development. As a result, it got ascendancy over Kurmanji, for instance, in Iraqi Kurdistan, and in Iran in the 20th century, really replaced, from the late 19th century, you could see that it replaced Gorani as a medium of poetic expression. And I must emphasize that if you look at the literary production of scholars, literati, Kurdish literati, actually until the early 20th century, Gorani was, even Sorani speakers adopted Gorani as the language of poetic expression. But Sorani gradually replaced that. In Iran, let's go to this map. This is a map by Haig and Oppingen. So if you look at Iran, you see that in Iran, the majority is the speakers are Sorani speakers, and Kurmanji is also spoken in Iran. We have a so Gorani has declined to a state of being considered an endangered language now. So here is, despite its historic significance and development, really, and it's a massive cultural heritage. You see that its use is now limited to this little gray area on the Iran-Iraq border. The only dialect that is not spoken in Iran is Zazaki. Southern Kurdish, as Dr. Hewa mentioned, is also spoken in Iran. But what happened to Gorani? So, as I said, its use really it is used sporadically, and it is. I think it falls into the area of language activism, because the people who are involved in the revitalization of Gorani are language activists, some of them, and some are, of course, literary activists, but nonetheless activism, because and these are the examples of, but it is encouraged in the Hawraman area, and overall I think it's encouraged in Iran by Iranian Kurds. So here are some example of recent publications, which, as you see, very interestingly, considerable number of, at least here, 2 of them are written by women. So women play a significant role in this language revitalization. And it's not limited, the use is not limited to poetry, which is traditionally strong, but we see its use in novel and also other literary forms, in plays, because I will mention that Mariwan is the center for a very famous and very important festival, theater festival in Iranian Kurdistan. So it is used in different literary forms, but it's limited. On the history, so So by the early 20th century, we lost Gorani, or throughout the 20th century, we lost Gorani. Sorani is the dialect that is mostly spoken. Iran is, you know, a multilingual, multi-ethnic country. Kurdish is the third language with 6 to 7 million speakers. But it had a challenging history throughout the 20th century. During the first Pahlavi era, it was completely banned. The language was banned because he adopted the one nation, one state, one language policy. His son initially followed his father's policy, but following the establishment of the Kurdistan Republic of Mahabad and the adoption or the declaration of Sorani as Kurdish Sorani as the official language, following that, we witnessed, as stated by Professor Sheikh al-Islami, controlled and limited relaxation. So we saw relaxation of the assimilation policies, but in a controlled and a very limited way. So we saw some limited Kurdish publication. And after the revolution, Professor Sheikh al-Islami has put it really very correctly and beautifully: limited, restricted, and controlled tolerance. It has been tolerated, and but it is controlled. It has been controlled and restricted. And here, the Article 15 of Section 2 of the Iran Constitution is significant to note, because this is probably one of the most, well, it is the most noticeable change in the policy, or at least on the surface of the change of the regime. So this is the Article 15, and if you read it, it reads as: the official language and script of Iran, the lingua franca of its people, is Persian. Official documents, correspondence, and texts, as well as textbooks, must be in this language and script. However, the use of regional and tribal languages in the press and mass media, as well as for teaching of their literature in school, is allowed in addition to Persian. I'm sorry I had to read that, because it is important, and it is really an anchor to which activists, language activists, and Kurdish intellectuals who have been in Iran and outside as well have tried to enforce, with all its implied challenges and obstacles and all the problems, have tried to convince the government to enforce its own constitution. But they have faced many difficulties. However, I think especially in the last decade, we have seen, I mean, optimistically, if you look at it, we see an explosion of activities. And what has happened, I think, okay, they are in different arenas. Still, the language are not taught, Kurdish is not taught at school, but if you look at the publication, again, before the revolution, before 1979 and after 1979, the actual number of the Kurdish publications are significantly higher. And now, I mean, that is another question. What are the content, you know, what are the subject of this publication? But nonetheless, it's significantly higher. And again, really, the fate of Kurdish languages, as other places that Kurds live, is quite tied to the political situation of the country. So when we had reformist government in place, for instance, during the Khatami time, I mean, the publication, the number rose significantly. I mean, the situation was changed really noticeably. That was a time that I was a student, so I remember vividly that like the revival, or you could say, of or the establishment of unions, student unions, and language courses in university, the establishment of language schools. But when the next government arrived, some of these activities were stopped, or were restricted. Some of the publications ceased to exist, actually. So it's it hasn't had a continuous life. It has faced its life has had many ups and downs. But I think one of the significant achievements for Kurdish scholars, activists have been, finally they managed to convince the government to allow the establishment of language course program, Kurdish language and literature program at University of Kurdistan. And for years this was supposed to happen, but it was delayed, and finally in 2015 they started officially. And here is just a screenshot. I wasn't sure if I can open the link to the website. Here is a link of to University of Kurdistan and the Guruh Zaban Adabiyat Kurdi, the program. And I think what's really interesting, if you look at if you go to, and for those of you who are familiar or can read Persian, the explanation of how it came about, how it came to existence, it's in itself really interesting. In the explanation is they refer to the Article 15 of the Constitution, so it is it is constitutional that we are running this program.
Farangis Khan,
yes?
Sorry, if you could try to wrap it up in 2 minutes, please.
Sure.
Thank
so currently they have 3 faculty members, and they have 160 students. Here you have you see the image of Dr. Bakhtiar Sajjadi, who is the program leader, and some of us in Exeter had the honor of seeing and meeting him here when he was doing his PhD in Exeter. But I just wrap up. So as well as this, I think this is probably the most significant, because it reminds its academic inclusion, or the inclusion of it in an academic level. It just reinforces the confidence of the speakers in the value of their language. It is symbolic, but it reinforces the value of the language. And again, in the last decade, especially, what is noticeable is the translation efforts. In both ways, the politics of it, it's really interesting. What books, what works are translated into Persian and vice versa, but nonetheless, this dialogue is happening. We have seen also the revitalization of Southern Kurdish in forms of new publications in this dialects. A group of dialects is teaching, and also the research that is conducted by on this group of dialect. Despite all the challenges, the journals, the publications, especially the magazines, literary magazines, and some of them bilingual, continue to be published, and literary circles and academic circles are happening in forms of activities, some of them, most of them actually, by volunteers on voluntary basis in most of the Kurdish cities. And language revitalization, teaching language, or discussion on literature is among the prime agenda. Nonetheless, I mean, the challenge remains that it's the language activists are sometimes regarded as with suspicion, let's say, and the activities sometimes face restrictions. But I think the overall image is that it continue to live and strive. Thank you. I look forward to your comments and questions and our discussion.
Yes, thank you very much, Farangis. Yes, please stay around. There might be questions. And once again, thank you very much for your time today, for your wonderful presentation. Let me explain a technical thing about, you might have seen me engaging with my phone, with paper. At the same time, people send messages about technical part of it. How can they join? Some of them still ask for Zoom link. So I apologize for that. One reminding, the audience are welcome to raise their hand in Zoom platform and ask their question in question and answer sessions. And those who cannot express their questions in English are welcome to raise their question in Kurdish. We will try to manage that with translation. Now, our final speaker of today, Mamosta Aladdin Sinayic, a dear friend of ours. Aladdin Sinayic is a journalist, political activist, and probably most importantly, known as Kurdish teacher, who have been involved in teaching Kurmanji Kurdish to thousands of Kurdish and non-Kurdish people in UK, mainly in London, since 2011, when he arrived here in the UK as a refugee. And now he teaches Kurmanji to many others via Zoom platform, which is became familiar in this last 3 months of pandemic, which has the Zoom has proven to be a valuable platform for people like us Kurds who don't have their own state and state institutions. So it's a good platform to come together as Kurds and interact with each other, even on an academic level. We unfortunately do not have somebody representing Rojava, not because we couldn't find one, but because the initial plan was having 2 speakers. Then we've extended it to 4 speakers, and there was diaspora to cover. But Mamosta Aladdin is a perfect profile to represent both diaspora and Rojava. The reason being is he comes from Nusaybin town in Bakur, but right on the border of Rojava. We all know that there is an artificial border that divided Nusaybin and Qamishlo. Kurds of mainly that part of Kurdistan refer it as Sarkhat and Benkhat. Sarkhat literally in English is over line. Benkhat is under the line. By the line, I mean the border. So he is well familiar with Rojava, and he has paid trips there. So I kindly asked him to give some of his time to cover Rojava part as well, the smaller part of his thing, because he has a lot to talk about diaspora. So Mamosta Aladdin, the floor is yours, and you have 15 minutes like the other speakers. Thank you.
Gelek spas brez Mithat evar baş ve tevaraji. Brasti idi meji şaş kiriyem serxetine bin xetine nizanim. Yani beri naha mel serxetil bin xeted neri va çend sale daviji ez çum rojava mexabil mikaribu biçim serxete mej bin xetel serxete neri evji qadera me kurdai. So I think 99% of participants are Kurdish, but still the format is in English, so we will continue.
One thing I haven't managed to discuss with my committee friends, but the initial plan was going to be partly in Kurdish, and we've already got some criticism in the chat group.
Really?
So
do you want me to continue in Kurdish?
So if we don't have anybody objecting very strongly, I think you're welcome to speak in Kurdish if you wish to.
I know a few non-Kurds from participants, and their Kurdish is good as mine. People like Iskender, but already Zenobia Human, please.
Probably most of them are your students anyway.
Yeah. Okay, I think there are some people asking for English, so Zenobia is saying English, please. So even if there is one people who doesn't understand us in Kurdish, so it will be good to speak in English. It would be much better really to speak in Kurdish, but again, our Sorani friends would struggle to understand Kurmanji as well. So that's our fate as well, as a Kurd. So firstly, I want to thank Kurd-Akad for organizing this event, and want to thank everyone who joined us today, and especially to Ronayi, Hewa, and Farangis who did their presentation, and that was really useful and helpful. So I will be, firstly, I want to mention, I do not have any academic background on Kurdish language, and I see myself always as a Kurdish language servant. That's how I describe really myself. So I will be sharing my experience during these 10 years of teaching Kurdish language in diaspora, and also my observation in Kurdish community, mostly in UK. I will give some examples from Germany and Sweden, but mainly I can talk about UK. But before that, I would like to start drawing a general picture of Kurdish migration, especially in Europe, or let's say Western Europe. So there is no really a number we can give, because there are many researchers and study about the numbers of Kurdish diaspora in Europe. However, none of them really are reliable, or all of them are different than each other, and there is no official statistic of the states we live in. There are many reasons really behind this, because many Kurds hold Turkish, Iraqi, Iranian, or Syrian citizenship, and in census population, so they are registered as one of them. Just a few of them are registered as Kurdish. Let's say, I will come to that, but let's say in London, just around in 2011, 45,000 people registered as or identified themselves as Kurdish ethnically, and from these 45,000, just 15,000 of them stated that their main language or their mother tongue is Kurdish. I don't know what like the other 35,000 their mother tongue was. Why just from 45,000 people who identified themselves as Kurdish, but just 15,000 of them stated their mother tongue as Kurdish. And the other reason, thousands of Kurdish migrants in Europe still undocumented, and there one of other reason, mainly one of them in UK, there is a large number of Alevi Kurds living in UK and elsewhere as well, and they register themselves, or they identify themselves more than Kurd. They just identify themselves as Alevi ethnically. Similar thing with our Yazidi community. More than identifying themselves Kurdish, they identify themselves as Yazidi. But a few years ago, Council of Europe, in one of their reports, they mentioned about 1.3 million Kurds living in Western Europe, which when we look at the reality, the number of Kurdish diaspora in Western Europe looks much more than this, because we are just talking about over 1 million Kurds just living in Germany, or around 400,000 Kurds living in UK, and similar number in France and in Holland, in Sweden. So the number will be much more than this. And the Kurdish migration to Europe, mostly we can talk about the last 5 or 6 decades due to repression and the war in Kurdish land, in Kurdistan, and hundreds of thousands Kurds fled to seek asylum elsewhere, and particularly the famous destination was Europe, and mostly Germany. So when we look at North Kurdistan, the migration from North Kurdistan, let's say, from Turkey, so large number of Alevi Kurds first arrived as refugees following from the region of mostly Marash and around Marash after the Marash massacre in 1978, and after that in 1980 military coup was another reason. Thousands of Kurds again fled, and then the biggest migration, largest I would say, in 90s it started when Turkish state waged total war against Kurds in North Kurdistan, which thousands of villages were burned or destroyed, and hundreds of thousands of people were forced to leave their land. And we had similarly, not brutal as Turkey, but in Syria, after Ba'ath Party came to power in 1963, and particularly in 1970, when Assad secured his presidency, there was a lot of migration, like many people, thousands of people fled Syria, and through Turkey they came to Europe as well. And the other one, maybe the oldest one, is from Iraqi Kurdistan, South Kurdistan. It starts from 60s, which maybe we can talk about, like also intellectual students who came for education, but in 80s and 90s the number really increased. That was because of the war going on, the Gulf War, and the war between Iran and Iraq before that, and Saddam Hussein's regime, including brutal Anfal campaign, and also Halabja massacre. And we had another one, similarly, we had similar repression in East Kurdistan in Iran as well, so thousands fled from there as well. So coming to our topic, like the Kurdish language in diaspora, so I want to share one photo from the UNESCO and continue from there. So this chart is from UNESCO. Kurdish, Kurmanji, and Sorani is not included in endangered languages. So from the chart you can see 43% of languages are endangered. Only Zazaki dialect, Kurmanji dialect, is included in this endangered language, in these 43%. But my point is, Kurdish language is endangered in Kurdish diaspora, and it is severely endangered. And I will come to that why. So it is saying definitely endangered. When it says definitely endangered, children no longer learn the language as mother tongue in the home. And that's our experience. Why do I say that? Why do I say Kurdish Kurmanji? No, I'm not talking about Sorani, so making it clear, because Sorani's situation is totally different. But Kurdish Kurmanji is endangered. Why do I say that? Let's first look at the Germany example, and then we will come to UK example. And I will compare it with Turkish language. Because why I am comparing with Turkish language? Because the students who takes Turkish lesson and Turkish language lesson and Turkish culture lesson, half of them, or maybe more than half, are Kurdish. So now we mentioned there are over 1 million Kurds living in Germany. So the number, because in state school you can have your mother tongue as a lesson as well. If there is, if more than 15 students demand that lesson in one school, so that school has to provide them with a teacher. So at the moment, we are talking about over 1 million, but the number of schools have Kurdish language in 3 provinces of Germany is only just 50. And the number of teachers are only 25. This is 2 years ago, and I don't think there will be a big change in here as well. And the number of students are just 2,200. Maybe now, let's say 2,500. But have a look to Turkish language and how it works, because there are 2 lessons. One is Turkish language, one is Turkish culture is taught in schools in Germany. So in 2000, so the numbers I'm giving are from 2007, according to Education Ministry in Turkey. So the number, so they have sent 532 teachers from Turkey to Germany. These teachers are employed by Turkish state. 532 teachers. And also German government has provided 770 teachers. So these come, so 532 by Turkish state and 770 by German government. And these bring the number to 1,302, while we have just 25 Kurdish teachers. And the number of students are 91,000, while there are only 2,200 students taking Kurdish lessons. So apart from state school, there are hundreds of supplementary schools run by community centers as well, or by different organizations that they teach Turkish language and Turkish culture to children. And plus to this, the other biggest one, there is a large organization funded again by Turkish state called Turkish Islamic Union for Religious Affairs. And in Turkish they call it Diyanet İşleri İslam Birliği. So DİTİB, I will be mentioning DİTİB as a short version. It is Cologne-based group, and they run 960, let's say 1,000 nearly, 960 mosques and community centers. And just by Turkish state, 824 imams are working in these centers or mosques. And these imams, 824, these are the numbers they've been sent by Turkish state, by Diyanet Religious Affairs. And they are not just teaching or not giving religious service. They also teach Turkish culture, and they organize camps and summer schools. And the other thing, until 2018, apart from they are funded by, they have, Mithat is saying you've got 2 minutes, so I have to come to UK then. So this is the Germany and UK. So again, Turkish language is taught in many schools, official state schools in UK. And the other good thing for Turkish language, because it is accepted as modern language, and you can have a GCSE in Turkish language, and also you can have A level. So again, there are nearly 100, I think must be more than that by 2020. Again, teachers sent by Turkish state. And these are the other supplementary school. Apart from these, what I mentioned, there are 37 students, schools which they teach Turkish language and Turkish culture. And when you look at London, because 90% of them are in London, and they are all based in Kurdish populated area, like Enfield. So coming to Kurdish, how many Kurdish schools we have in United Kingdom when we talk about 400,000 Kurds in UK? None. There are none. There isn't any school or supplementary school going on at the moment in UK. Kurds are well organized in UK politically. They have many community centers, but unfortunately, when we come to language point, there is no really a supplementary school, which had two were run. One was London Kurdish Institute, and the other one by Kurdish student professionals, which stopped now. And there was a Kurdish language in SOAS by Ahmed Tari's personal efforts by university, but that has stopped as well. I've been teaching in different organizations, and we just ended one in LSE University as well. So as you see from here, unfortunately, one of Kurdish linguists, Abdullah İncekan, was saying that Turks in Germany are forgetting Turkish and they use German, and the Kurds in Germany are forgetting Kurdish and they start using Turkish. They speak in Turkish. So this is the picture which doesn't look really bright. In Sweden, I can't go into it, but it's quite different. The situation in Sweden is different. And Mithat is looking at me directly.
And one thing I'm worried about Rojava.
About Rojava.
Yeah, because we've
already. So can we maybe in long question and answer session we can add Rojava as well.
I would like you to just give a brief outline, because we've already upsetted friends from Rojava today. The fact that we've chosen to speak in English, and
so when I had some more to say about Rojava and give you a little bit background of before 2011, before the revolution. I wanted to give a little, but everybody, Kurds in Rojava has managed to have a big step in education. More than 40,000 teachers have been trained and prepared. And the good one, like for this year, 2019 and 2020, this is the curriculum of education, which you can see 6 years as primary school and 3 years as secondary school, and another 3 years as Amadei, they call it, which is like we can take it as a college or high school. But I want to show you each of them from one. What kind of I will show you the Kurmanji one. I'll show you what kind of lessons they teach, which from this, which you see from this minhaj.info, you will be able to download all of them as well. It's like a treasure, really, a nice, really important source. So you can see this is the first start, like first year. They would teach Birkar, which is math, music, drawing, like sport, and Kurdish language. And then coming to secondary school first year, let's say, I'm not going into deep all of them. So again, we have math, culture, history, geography, Kurdish language, again, science, and also English. And when we come to college or high school, again, in the first year, I will show you, which you all can go here and download all these brilliant books. So again, we've got math and culture, sociology, history, geography, philosophy, science, and also we have genealogy as a lesson again in curriculum, and then Kurdish literature, and then biology and science again, and English language. And all of this curriculum has been prepared, as I said, in Arabic, Kurmanji, and Syriac language, which if you go to website, you will be able to see all of them. So I think I need to stop here. Maybe if you have any question, we can answer as well. Gelek spas brez Mithat. U biborinë jberkum من دمجي درباسكر. Denge خوشی فکر denge تنای.
Spas Mr. Aladdin. Thank you very much once again for this wonderful presentation. Unfortunately, the time tends to be a problem in such platforms most of at the decision point where I have to possibly sacrifice from my little part of it was going to be 5 minutes Zazaki presentation on situation on Zazaki. I'm not an expert on Zazaki language, dialect, but I am a Zaza myself, and I do speak Zazaki at home. So I'll keep that very brief so that we have enough time for question and answers. We already are half an hour behind our schedule. Although name Zazaki is not a preferred version by many pioneer Zaza linguists, such as Malmi Sanej, Ihsan Aspar, and others, it seems like it's inevitable we're having to use it now. I come from a part in Bakur where we name ourselves Kurd, and dialect we speak is Kurdki. We also have Kermanjki, we have Demli, and finally Zazaki, how we Zazas Kurds name ourselves. I'll briefly tell you where they are spoken, why we have this 4 version that we name ourselves in for such a rather small population. The population is estimated to be between 3 and 6 million, but the upper number I would say is said by mostly the pro-Zazas. Unfortunately, we don't have the actual number neither for Zazaki nor for Kurmanji speakers in Bakur, in Turkish part of Kurdistan, for the obvious reasons. Kurdki is Zazaki Kurdki is mainly spoken in 2 majorly spoken in 2 cities. They are Dersim and Chevlig. Chevlig is called Bingal, for those who don't know. In Chevlig area, we call it Kurdki, and also some towns of Ahmed, Diyarbakir, call the dialect they speak as Kurdki. In Dersim, when I say Dersim, the historical sense of wider geographical Dersim, not the city of Tunceli that we know today. In Dersim province, with wider aspect of it, they call it Kermanjki. And the Malay is the name used by Zazas in mainly Siverek, Gerjush, in 2 towns of Ahmed, Chermik and Chingush. And Zazaki is the latest version of how this group of people name themselves, and it's also used for the dialect in mainly Elazığ area, some part of Malatya, and Elazığ, a couple of Elazığ's town. Zazaki is a dialect that it's under threat of dying, unfortunately, like Hawrami, case of Hawrami, and it was listed in the language list to possibly die by UNESCO, as Mama Aladdin mentioned. The similar other dialect of Kurdish is said to be Hawrami, but since the Kurds do not have their state of their own, let alone being able to speak with each other, we don't know to what extent they could understand each other. There is I think, a very similar line between the two dialects, but I don't know to what extent. With Zazaki, unlike Kurmanji in Bakur, the standardization work have started rather late by a very small group, volunteer group in diaspora in Europe, in Sweden. I'd like to say Mamos Temal Misanij and his friends. Back in 1996, they come together systematically, mostly once in 6 months or twice in a year, in a meeting format, and decide on mainly vocabulary. For instance, when I had an interview with them, they told me that, for instance, they come together to decide for that session the terminology to use in a municipality or such. Then there is mainly about 20-25 representative of all Zazaki speaking areas. They come together, they decide for the terminology. Zazaki in Turkey is at the crossroads of many challenges, such as being systematically assimilated by the Turkish state. Okay, that the same process is applied to Kurmanji or Kurmanjis as well, but since the Zazas are a smaller number and already behind the fact that they didn't have a standard Zazaki to interact with each other, unlike the Kurmanji, which had the history of standardizing over a century, since the Badr Khani family. And this, along many other challenges, makes Zazaki weaker for future hope. But there is a new tendency, thanks to the social media platforms. I'm just not sure whether it's going to be strong enough to save this dialect for future or not. But we are resisting, like many of people that I know. We speak it at home. I speak it with my son here in the UK. So that's part of our resistance language activism for our dialect. thank you very much for all of you for listening. I go straight to the questions. I know that I have a couple of questions that I was going to open with, but because we are so behind, I rather keep them for later and give the voice to people who like to ask the questions. I have so many honored guests today here in the chat group when I checked, including some of my former teachers. So I'd like to open the floor with your questions. If you have any question, please raise your hand in Zoom platform. We will give you the voice. You could alternatively drop your question in chat group. And as I said earlier, to make it fair and equal, you can ask your questions in Kurdish. We know that's more time consuming, but we will try to manage that. Thank you. The floor is now audiences. Ahmed, Mr. Aladdin, I don't see the hand rise. Maybe because I'm on iPad now. Can you just tell me?
Barzan, actually, Barzan, Dilek, and Iskender. So I am going to unmute Iskender. Start with him.
Yes, Iskender, please go ahead.
Hi, hello. Hi. Thank you so much. I'll be very short, and thank you so much for all 5 presenters who presented today. Especially among you, there's Mamoste Aladdin, who personally I learned Kurdish from directly, and also Mamoste Ronayi and Mamoste Hewa, whose books I've used to learn Kurmanji and Sorani respectively. I have questions actually for the first 4 speakers. So for Mamoste Ronayi, as a learner who is not, who doesn't have a Kurdish background, I guess one of the most frustrating aspects of learning Kurmanji is that there doesn't seem to be a standardized a version of Kurmanji. Obviously, all the textbooks try to present a standardized version of Kurmanji, but I've seen quite a lot of textbooks for Kurmanji, but even sometimes these textbooks don't agree with each other on what the gender of the of a particular word is. So my question would be: is there any plan for? I mean, you know, how do you deal with? I suppose back in in Turkey or in a diaspora, you tend to teach people who do have a Kurdish background and who probably speak at home or have heard it since childhood, and it's easier for them. But for students like us who don't have a Kurdish background, how are you going to bridge the gap between what we learn from the textbooks, which present a standardized version of Kurdish, and what we hear in real life? Because when I read Kurdish, I can understand almost everything after 3 years of learning. But when I listen to news and everything, there's still a lot of struggle, probably because people aren't speaking a standard. So that's my question for Mamoste Ronayi. For Mamoste Hewa, thank you very much for actually what I would call the best Sorani textbook that is there, and I as soon as it came out, I bought it. Again, it's probably the same question, you know, the Hinker for Sorani now. When I look at it, I've got the impression that it's for heritage speakers or people who know a bit of who know a variety of Kurdish, be it Zaza, be it Kurmanji. Do you have any plan on producing something that is more international, that is more comprehensive in terms of learners? And also for Dr. Farangis Ghaderi, you know, I've noticed that in recent years there has been a sort of interest among the wider Iranian audience for Kurdish music and Kurdish culture. How do you think that will help with the situation of Kurdish language and culture in Iran? You know, do you think that it has helped with, you know, not perceiving Kurdish as a sort of bad thing, or do you think that's just some sort of exotic sort of fantasy with the, I suppose, the Persian population? And for Mamoste Aladdin, what do you think is the solution to diaspora kids learning Kurdish, learning Turkish as a heritage language instead of Kurdish, given that at home they probably don't even speak Kurdish because there's such a break? I mean, you know, the parents' generation probably didn't, due to the ban in Turkey. The parents probably don't even speak Kurdish. In this situation, how can they just be comfortable with using, you know, using the Kurdish, even if there were Kurdish Sunday schools or Saturday schools? You know, how do you think? What do you think is the solution? Thank you very much.
Firstly, for those who raised their questions, could I please ask you to turn your computer, your camera on, so we could see you, if possible. Secondly, Ronayi is having some technical problems, Master Ronayi. So we just go in the other order. Hewa, Farangis, and I think Aladdin was asked to.
Mithat, maybe it will be better to take a few questions than start to answer, because some questions will be very close to each other, and it will be, I think, much better to have 3-4 questions in one go, and speakers can note them. I think it will be better. The other way, we will lose a lot of time.
As long as you keep track of it, that's completely fine by me. So dear speakers, please keep track of your questions. I will ask them, and when Ronayi is back in the room, I will update you guys. Before that, there is a couple of questions in chat group. They are asking to for the speakers, if the speakers could share their slides. Can we share it with them? This question is to all the speakers who had the slides, the notes.
Yeah, I can share it. Sure.
Okay. Farangis?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and I have a list of bibliography which might be helpful as well.
Okay. Somebody is asking for Mamoste Michael Chayat's email. I don't know if we can.
Himself,
we could do that.
Himself is here.
I think
yes. I've seen him.
Maybe it will be good to hear from him a few minutes as well, if you have time. It would be good to hear from him as well.
Yes, definitely. And yeah, so the second person was Dilek or Barzan?
Yeah, Dilek. Which one shall I unmute? Dilek or Barzan?
Dilek, go with Dilek, please.
Okay. Dilek?
Hi.
Yep.
Hi, thank you so much for all of you. I have a couple of questions to Dr.
Dilek, can I ask you to turn your camera on if possible? And also, we try to take a question each time, maximum 2. Otherwise, there won't be enough time for the others who like to ask their question. In the second round, if there's not enough people who want to ask questions, you're more than welcome to ask again.
Unfortunately, I can't open the camera. Maybe next time.
That's fine. No problem.
Yeah, thank you. So my question is to Mamoste Hewa is, I mean, he always mentioned when he talk about the Soran is Central Kurdish. So as we know, we have quite lots of dialects in the Kurmanji and Goran, these kind of different dialects. So I wonder that why you call it the Sorani specific as a central? I mean, is that because of the KRG or because of something different, which I don't know? And another things which is connected to Mamoste Aladdin's topic, which is diaspora Kurdish student. So the KRG have planning to kind of establish a school to teach Sorani or Kurmanji in diaspora? Yeah, this is my question. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dilek. Barzan, can we unmute Barzan, please?
Hello, everybody. Yeah, thank you very much for the organizers. I think it was one of the most interesting events that I have attended so far on Zoom. I have just one very small technical question for Mamsta Ronayi. I don't know if she's back in the chat group or not, but maybe you guys can address it later. In the last slide, she mentioned Kurmanji and Kurmanji. One spelled with an I and the other one spelled with U. Is this was it a spelling mistake, or is there a difference between those two? I thought
that's actually I think I could just answer that. Kurmanji is what we say Zazaki. Kurmanji is the bigger dialect Kurmanji, actual Kurmanji that you know.
Okay.
Kurmanji is what Zazas call themselves and call their dialect in their same area as we said.
Okay, that's very good. I have some questions for Mamsta Hewa, but I think I've managed to get his number, which I will call him later at some other point, because it will be a longer discussion. But thank you very much to everybody.
That's very kind of you. Thank you very much, Barzan. Who is the next?
We have Ayub and Aro. Which one?
Ayub, please.
Hey. Yes, Ayub.
ببورن پرسین من تنبو انگلیسی ها من تنه داستا فام کرنه دایا استنی و گهداری دیگه دست خورانه که نظام اگر به دست خورا کر باش
دست راکریه تمام
شاش راکریه
درچه which akhi
Aro, you said, yeah.
دلگی آرو بنابه
حیا ببه
sorry yes thank you very much. It's me, Ali, basically.
Oh.
My email.
Ali, okay.
Yeah, thank you very much for organizing this excellent discussion. First, I start with blaming you, Mithat, and the Aka Kurd, because I think when it comes to language, we should have a Hawrami insight as well as other dialect. So that's one thing I think we missed tonight, the insights from the Hawrami experience in the Hawrami language. That's one thing. Second, when it comes to the Hawrami, there is always the problem basically what's called the mixed with the Gorani. So just a small clarification. I do apologize. I don't have a specific question to a specific speaker, but generally some very short. If you give me some time, just generally give you some overview about the Hawrami. So there is a mix, unfortunately, with the Gorani. When we say Gorani, is actually is rather than regional things. It's not language. The Gorani is in the Kurdish language, it comes with the Jav. So when we say Gorani, mean people who are subtle, and when we say Jav, we mean nomad people. So that's when the actual, I think, the name come from. Otherwise, Hawrami is language and is also region. But sometimes what I'm trying to say is sometimes there is a confusion between Gorani and Hawrami. So Hawrami is an independent language and it's an area which the people from that area spoken Hawrami language. So that's just.
Master Ali, I'm sorry, we have quite a few people waiting. Yes, your criticism is welcomed. You're right. I've asked Farangis and Hewa to cover Hawrami.
Okay.
But we will do similar events And
Sure.
in the future, we will take consideration. Thank you.
No,
very
no,
much.
sure. I'm just basically going to thank Farangis. That's what I try to say that anyway. So yes, she did very good in that part. But basically, what I want to say finally, then, in a very short sentence, is that unfortunately, Hawrami language under the Iranian regime is doing much better than under the Kurdish authority or Kurdish administration in KRG, because in Hawraman in eastern Kurdistan there is an establishment of unofficial school, which is the Hawrami taught in many places, and I mean unofficial, but unfortunately under KRG administration until now they don't allow even a single sign of shops written in Hawrami in Hawrami area. So that's really frustrating. That's really disappointing. So well, because of I know we are under pressure of the time, I'm not going to expand on that. Finally, I would like to say something for Aladdin's diaspora. As I was, I have experiences of this also thing. I did organize a Kurdish supplementary here in the UK. I think there is one reality, one fact, unfortunately, and that is always is the obstacle of organizing and teaching the Kurdish language in diaspora, and that is an impact of division at home. The division at home has a great impact on the on ours here in the diaspora. So unfortunately, just tell you my experiences here in this regard. In this city, which I am living in Bristol, I organized the Kurdish supplementary school. Unfortunately, it was running for nearly 3 years. We didn't have a single student, I mean, non-Sorani student. And this is a shame because, as I say, the impact of division at home has really reflected here in the diaspora. So sorry, there is a lot to say, but it's very interesting discussion. Thank you very much for organizing, and thank you for speakers. I know you are under pressure of time, so I'm not saying anymore. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ali. Thank you. Mamuste Michael Chayat has an input, and rightly, he just wrote Kurmanji is a regional pronunciation of Kurmanji at the same time. Maybe if you wish to, I'll just give you floor for a couple of minutes to put to have your input, please, Mamuste Michael Chayat, if you're still with us.
Yeah, I'm still with you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Sure.
I'm so used to starting with deng te instead of speaking in English. I've been spending the past 3 months working at home, and while I work, I've been listening to the Kurdology online courses that Ibrahim Seydo Aydogan has organized, largely with Kurds of Bin Khet, of Rojava. But so every day I've been listening to Kurmanji being spoken, and it's been a celebration of the language for me, I have to say. I'm aware that a lot of people are suffering, but I personally have been listening to Kurdish music and speaking every day, and it's been wonderful. But just a couple of things I wanted to say. I think I don't have a lot of time, so I'll just talk about Zaza.
Thank you.
I have a very dear friend who's from Chermuk. He grew up in Siorek, and he has a lovely website with all sorts of Kurdish, specifically Zaza, folktales and proverbs and linguistic things. I'll find it and put it in the chat room. But he tells me, and this is an issue which not only Zaza speakers have, but Kurmanji speakers have too, at least in what we're calling Bakur. He tells me he's heard a Zaza speaking grandmother who only knows Zaza say with pride that her grandson doesn't know Zaza, that he only knows Turkish. This sort of internalized negativity, seeing one's language as backward and something to be ashamed of, and certainly something not to pass on to the next generation. This is one of the major obstacles that we need to address. There are, I mean, when I hear, like even in a place like Hakkari, which used to be about the most Kurdish place that comes to mind in Bakur, my friend Bruce Turan, after whom I named my dictionary when he passed away at age 46, when he went back to Hakkari with his own kids a couple of years ago for the summer, when he came home to Paris, he called me and he said, Michael, Kurdish children on the street in Julemerg are now speaking to each other in Turkish, not in Kurdish. And my feeling is, who are these parents who've been co-opted by this idea that Kurdish is backwards and something to be ashamed of and something not to pass on to their children? Who are these parents? These are the people we need to be addressing. How is it that they have been convinced that Kurdish has something to do with the past, not with the present or the future? This is, I mean, I'm saying this to share this with as widely as possible. What is our answer to that? I mean, people who think that Kurdish doesn't have the modern vocabulary for to deal with what's happening in the world today, obviously have not been listening to the news in Kurdish on a regular basis. I mean, I just published the second edition of my dictionary. I'm already working on a third edition. I mean, the words just keep coming up. I mean, the language is, they're not all new words. They're words that are new to me because I'm not a native speaker to a large extent, but the language is growing and prospering for the people who use it and are proud of it. But there are people out there, at least in their millions, at least in their thousands, if not in their millions, who don't know that, and some of them don't think that Kurdish is relevant for their lives. So I'm going to say thank you, and it's an honor to be here and give someone else some floor time.
Well, thank you very much, Mamaste Michael Chayat. We have another dear Mamaste Jafar Sheikhul Islami. Can we give floor to him, please?
Thank you, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mamaste.
Thank you so much. Let me actually, where's my camera? There we go. Okay, that's interesting. Well, you can see this mountain, not me, for some reason. Oh, actually, I think because I blocked my camera.
Yeah, you are using the background.
My camera. I have this habit of blocking my camera. Just okay. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your presentations, wonderful presentations, and thank you for including me. A couple of quick points before I forget. I agree with Michael that Kurmanji, different rendering of the same thing, but in the Sorani speaking region, Kurmanj has a specific meaning. For example, in Mukriyan, in Mahabad, and even I think it's the case in Hawler and Koya, Kurmanj is the term used to refer to villagers, not Agha, not the landowner, not the people from the city. The people who are from village and they're farmers, or they're not a part of the landowner families and clans. So we, at least in Mahabad region, that's what we called Kurmanj. This is why purposefully, since I have been writing about Kurdish language, I use Kurmanji purposefully. And that's something, my own bias, but I prefer this. But again, there are different renditions of the same term. With respect to Gorani, a quick comment. I don't think they say they're the same, Mamasta Ali. linguists from Minorsky to the most current one, which to me is one of the most knowledgeable about Zazaki, Ludwig Paul, they don't call them the same or being different. They consider Hawrami perhaps the most archaic dialect variety of Gorani. They consider Gorani more ancient because we have written texts. And for some, Gorani, like Behruz Chamanara argues, it has never been spoken. It's just been a written language. But Hawrami has been spoken for ages. We don't know exactly. But what you said about that KRG has been ignorant about Hawrami, but apparently, supposedly, the Iranian government is more active, I do not agree at all, with all due respect. Absolutely not. The Iranian government would like to see Kurdish wiped out of this planet tomorrow. It is the people who have those classes, especially in the Mariwan region. The Mariwan region has been absolutely incredibly active in recent years, in the past maybe 2 decades or so, with Sorani, with Hawrami, with publication. They're just incredible what they do. And it's all volunteer work. The state doesn't help them, not a bit, not a penny. People do it themselves. So, and I don't think KRG is preventing any Hawrami speaker to have Kurdish classes in Hawraman, in Halabja. Are they? I doubt it. Yes, they haven't helped. They should have been much more proactive to keep the language, not to allow it to get to that stage to be considered endangered. But I don't think they stop volunteers to do these things. I have a couple of questions. One, if I may ask Mama Ronayi if she could share her slides. For Mama Hewa, Dr. Hewa, I have a question. I think, correct me if I have misunderstood you. You said that because nationalistic movement was so strong in Sulaimaniya region, they forced the British mandate to give them language rights. There is no question that because of the Baban history and Nali, Salim, Kurdi, Haji Qadir, all of these people in that region, absolutely, not perhaps Kurdiety in the sense of Kurdish nationalism, but the sense of Kurdishness was present in the region, in Shah Azur, in Sulaimaniya, no question about that. This is why Sheikh Mahmoud's rebellion doesn't take place in Hawler, but takes place in Sulaimaniya. There's a good reason for it. But when you refer to Tegeshtan, we have to keep one thing in mind. Sheikh Mahmoud's revolt, the first one, for the first time, started in May 1919, 1919, his first revolt. Yet, Major Swan, and British Mandate authorities started Tegeshtan. They started it. The first periodical was published by British authorities in Sorani, in Sulaimaniya, on January 1st, 1918, 1 year prior to Sheikh Mahmoud's revolt. So the truth of the matter is, as I have written about this, Professor Hassanpour has written, and recently an excellent paper has been published by Michael Liesenberg. The British wanted Kurdish to be developed, to be standardized, to have it as something against Turkish and Arabic nationalism. We know that, and they promoted it, they liked it, but they didn't like Sheikh Mahmoud because he wanted independence. That was a no-no. That was too far. He was, according to the history documents, he was going too far with independence. So I wondered if you would consider this, or perhaps you could correct me if I'm wrong. For Mamasta Aladdin, just a quick question, but really fundamental. Why do you think Kurdish has been maintained better in Sweden versus Germany, when we know there is a much bigger population and much more vibrant in Germany compared to Sweden? What's the reason? Why? What do you think the reason is? Is it the state support? Is it the Kurdishness different, the way the Swedish Kurds see themselves versus German Kurds? I appreciate if you could elaborate on this. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you very much, Mamosta Jafar. We appreciate for your input. We also have Farhang, who raised and sent a message in private text. I've just seen it. If you could unmute him, and then we will do a round of answers. Then after that, we'll see how it goes.
Kek Mithat. Kek Amir Sherifi also wants to ask a question, but he does not know how to raise his hand, so we should also give him the
okay, he did it physically then. So
yes, exactly.
Firstly, if we could do Farhang, because he's been there for an hour, I think. Is Farhang here?
Yes.
Yes, if you could keep it very short, please, and turn your camera on.
Yeah, thank you very much. Sorry. Actually, I don't know why. Yeah. Thank you very much to all listeners and the professors. I want to correct Mamosta Hewa's discourse that he mentioned Kurdish language in Iraq uses Arabic alphabet. But I believe the truth that is not the Arabic alphabet, but it is Aramic alphabet. And even Arabic language uses Aramic alphabet. And languages like Persian and Dari, they also use Aramic alphabet. However, this course is mistakenly attached to the name of Arabic alphabet. The Aramic alphabet existed before the Arabic language and is used in various languages of the region. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, for now at least, Amir Sharifi, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Enlightening, informative presentations, and congratulate you for organizing such a timely event. I had a question for Dr. Hewa Khalid. You know, for instance, one could say that English has that function today as a lingua franca, is the language of communication, rather than the language of affiliation, as House basically argues for most of us. To call basically Sorani and its elevation as a lingua franca in the KRG, I think is an oversimplification of asymmetrical relations. I was wondering, you know, how he has come to that conclusion, even in the drawing of the linguistic landscape in terms of basically communication across different dialects that we saw put together by the Koya University. You could see this asymmetry. Perhaps, you know, that asymmetry still exists. I'm sure it does, symbolically and pragmatically when it comes to Sorani and Arabic, even in the context of KRG. But when it comes to Kurmanji and Sorani, perhaps we need to be more careful about characterization of the use of Sorani as a lingua franca. I was wondering if you had any additional thoughts about this.
Thank you very much, Mamosta. Can I finally unmute Mehdi Jafarzadeh? And this will be the final person now. If we have still time after answers, we will give more voice. Luckily, not all of people asked questions. Some of them have their input as comment. So Mehdi Jafarzadeh, please.
ببرن من دست خرانه کری از باورم من جیب شاشی دست ملکاتیه.
باش سپاس مامۆستا سپاس. Okay, can we start answering now? So Hewa, Farangis, to Iskandar's question first, and if Iskandar can write in chat group what he asked to Ronayi, she wasn't here then, she is back now.
Shall I start?
Yes, please, Hewa, it's yours.
Okay, thanks for your questions. I'll start with Iskandar. He asked about Hinker, my Hinker. Thanks for your description for my Hinker. Actually, I'm going to print the other two levels of Hinker in the future, but I'm not sure when it would be. So thanks for your description. And Dilek asked about Central Kurdish, why I call Sorani Central Kurdish. Actually, Sorani speakers hate Sorani and they become angry when you call their dialect Sorani, because Soran is a town and the dialect is Central Kurdish. It is not Sorani. I do not mean it is center for Kurdish dialect. It's just in terms of geography. Soran speakers are in the center of Kurdistan geography. So it is geographical division. That's why we call Kurmanji Northern Kurdish, Sorani Central Kurdish, and Laki and the other southern dialects. So I say when you get a Sorani speaker, please do not call their dialect Sorani. They become angry. So and Sorani is the formal name of Sorani. And regarding Hawrami language in KRG, actually, Professor Dr. Sheikh Islami mentioned about that, and KRG is not against Hawrami, but they did nothing. I mean, they did nothing for Hawrami as well. Otherwise, the Hawrami speakers are in power, and our Ministry of Oil and National Resources are Hawrami, and there are many Hawramis in power, but unfortunately their dialect is going to, and it is in danger. So I know many Hawramis in Suleimani and Arbil, they teach their children Central Kurdish because it is they can get benefit from it. So I hope KRG think again about it. And Professor Sheikhul Islami mentioned about the British mandate support for Kurdish language. Yes, the professor. I did not mean that British support was because of Sheikh Mahmoud revolution. I just linked them together, and both of them had impact on Kurdish language, in particular Central Kurdish dialect. And if I said something like that, I'm sorry, it's not like that. And Mr. Farhang said it is not an Arabic alphabet. Actually, all the alphabets came from Phoenician alphabet. So if we think like that, we should say, okay, English alphabet is also Phoenician alphabet. Latin, I mean, actually, our alphabet comes from Arabic directly, and there's no doubt for that. If you go back to Malay Jaziri, Ahmadi Khani, Nali, Salem, Kurdi, all of them, they wrote Kurdish in Arabic alphabet. Later on, I mean, in the 20th of the last century, some people came and modified the Arabic alphabet, and they modified it in a way like Sidqi Kaaba and Tawfiq Wahbi, and they added some new letters to it. And Mamusta Amir Sharifi said, why you say Central Kurdish or Sorani is lingua franca. I just want to show that, I mean, I talked about KRG, Kurdistan region of Iraq, because when someone from Khanaqin or from Hawraman speak with someone from Duhok, they do not speak in their dialects. They speak in Central Kurdish. So it's just like the language of their all of dialect connection together. And Sorani has had a great impact on all the other dialects, in particular in KRG. I mentioned that Bahdini, I always discuss with our friends from Bahdini, and if they teach in Kurmanji, okay, they should learn Kurmanji, but they study in their accent. It is not acceptable in anywhere in the world to study in your town language. And they changed the alphabet of Kurmanji, which is Latin alphabet, but they study Kurmanji, Duhok accent in modified Arabic alphabet. It is not acceptable in anywhere in the world. So I just said it is lingua franca because people use it as a language for their, I mean, to talk with each other, because we tested that Hawrami speakers or Laki speakers in Khanaqin, they do not understand Kurmanji. I mean, their level of understanding is very weak. But when they speak in Central Kurdish, all of them understand each other and they use it. So, but in Arabic, there's no GP. I got a message from Mr. Farhang now. I'm sorry, these new letters are very new. I mean, they came from Persian later. For example, letter Wo, it was Arabic Shadda. In 1919, they added it into Kurdish. And now I'm working on something like that with Professor Jafar Sheikhul Islami. We hope to finish that, and it would be clear. But this alphabet came from Arabic language. It is Kurdish did not take it from Phoenician language or Aramaic or something like that. Thanks again. Thanks for your question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hewa. Farangis, would you like to take the floor now for your answers? Please try to keep it rather shorter if possible.
Well, I think I just had one question, didn't I?
Okay, okay, that's good.
I'll real quick. The question was, yeah, from Iskander. Yes, you're right. It's actually quite fascinating to see, you know, in recent years, as I said, in the last decade, especially the interest of Iranians in Kurds. And you could clearly see that, you know, by the interest they have taken in visiting Kurdistan and visiting and attending certain ceremonies, you know, festivals, taking part in Kurdish festivals. Your question was, is that positive? I think it's positive. You know, first of all, let me add that and it is in really continuation of what Professor Sheikh al-Islami said, that on the voluntary basis of the work that Kurdish activists, volunteers, you know, language, cultural activists really do. All these activities, festivals, you know, the recent fantastic revitalization efforts, revitalization of oral traditions. It's really amazing that how they have, you know, for instance, activists, cultural activists are elevating the Kurdish oral culture, for instance, and are making them or turning them into, you know, significant, noticeable festivals. And this has attracted attentions of Iranian. So it is from the work, immense work of Kurds themselves, Kurdish activists, and also I think what is an important factor in this attracting a new or recent attractive attention is a very noticeable presence, I think, noticeable presence of Kurdish students in Iranian universities. So they have been very successful in finding their places despite all the difficulties, economic difficulties that most of them face. They find their places in big universities throughout Iran, and they take pride in Kurdishness. So they engage in activities in their university, in campus. You know, they engage a lot. So it's as a result of all these activities, and it is positive because it's humanizing. It's here, you know, when they come and see and get engaged in these activities, it's humanizing because Kurds were dehumanized for a long time. So I see it as a positive, but I'm also aware, I mean, you put it really well, is that, you know, is it a fantasy, is it exotic side? And I had actually, once this discussion was a very dear colleague, an Iranian and a scholar in Persian Iranian literature. And I mean, you could argue that, and really, I mean, we need research for that. But I think his response maybe would be useful. His response, and he's an expert on Iranian cinema, was that we have moved from, maybe you could say, like, you see exoticization of Kurds, let's say in Iranian cinema by, you know, people like Yarostami. You could even, you know, you see that. But I think we have moved from that. That may be, I mean, just one observation. Whether it's accurate or not, I think we need research really to answer that. But overall, I see it as a humanizing, so positive. Thank you.
Ronayi, you're back, I know. Master Ronayi? Thank you very much, Farangis, by the way. Master Ronayi? We cannot hear you. Okay. There was a question at the very beginning by Iskander. Let me see if he has written. I asked him to write in chat group now again, but it's not there yet. But meanwhile,
يعني من بكرتاسي إيج روناير chat'e de
tamam.
Yani nizanım gelo xondi ne xondi. Yani persavi kurtasi ser standart kırna zaravay kurmancı bu. Yani
tamam ne xondi az barum
xondi. Baş.
And the second one was from Barzan to you, Ronayi, Master Barzan. Master Michael Chayat kind of responded already, but I want to see if you used it in your text for the same reason as Master Michael Chayat. He says, why do you, what is the difference between Kurmanj and Kurmanji? I have responded one thing, Master Michael Chayat responded the other. Both of them, I think they are correct for different reasons, but what is your response to that? Thank you. Again, we don't hear you.
Now?
Yes.
Okay. Hi again. Let me start with the question. I don't know who asked, but there is a question on chat asking me if I am planning to use online platform for teaching. I don't know whose question is that. Actually,
I think I know.
Actually, now these days I'm trying to finish my PhD work, so I don't have any plans about teaching Kurdish online. But there are many teachers like Aladdin and many teachers from Istanbul Kurdish institutes who are giving online lessons, I think. And if in the future I had the opportunity to use the online platform, and also I am planning to it, I want to build a platform supporting parents to raise their children bilingual, because I think the biggest issue, especially in Turkey, is that the parents don't know how to raise bilingual children. The parents who I am talking to them are complaining about this issue, because they say our children go to the school and their cognitive knowledge is getting higher in Turkish, and we cannot cope with it with our limited Kurdish. So if I get the opportunity, I am planning to use an online platform like that, supporting parents how to raise their children bilingual. By the way, Mr. Michael Child said mentioned an issue that parents think that Kurdish is backward. Yes, that's correct. Some of the parents think that, and this is a big issue. As I mentioned, that language activism is also aimed to make Kurdish language gain its symbolic value. It was the thing that I meant it. But it's not the only issue, I think. It's not the only issue that the parents think is backward. The assimilation policy is very heavy, and most of the parents are already assimilated through the education system, the Turkish education system. So I think it's more about the thought about the backwardness of Kurdish language. And of course, I can share my presentation with anybody who wants, although it doesn't include so many information like the other Mamosta's presentation. I just showed you some pictures. If you want, of course, I can share with you. And any other questions? Let me see. About the standardization issue, this is the biggest one. This is the biggest issue about the Kurdish language, the standardization issue. Yes, there are many kinds of standard Kurmanji, especially. I can talk about it, and there is no authority to put an end to these discussions. I think it will go on like that because we don't have an authority which is accepted by everyone. I don't know, Iskandar, if you know the last work about this published by Mesopotamia Foundation. Do you know any knowledge? You have to find that. There were many linguists gathered together for, I think, 3 years. They worked together and they wanted to put an end to these discussions. They choose some standard form among the different forms of the languages, but even that work was welcomed with lots of reactions. Some said that they were trying to change our linguistic habits, and some also asked them who you are. You are deciding in the name of Kurdish language. So the discussion is going to go on because this is the issue of standardization, I think, until one authority comes out and accepted by everyone. I don't know if it's necessary or not, because these days I am reading about the danger of standardization as well. You know, there is a big literature about the danger of standardization. It's really a complicated issue, I think. I think these were all. Thank you very much for the questions and the comments.
Sorry, Ronayi, just shortly on Kurmanj and Kurmanj. Oh, yeah, just shortly.
What I did, the Kurdish language movement decided to use the word Kurmanjki for Zazaki. I think in year 2011 or 12, because there is a belief that the Zazaki name is used by the authorities, not Zaza themselves. Although I know it's not true, because when I interview some Zazas, they say our grandparents called themselves as Zaza, especially some were from the Diyarbakir region. who call them as Zaza in historically. This is again a complex issue. I am not the one who decides, but this is a habit. I use Kurmanchki for Zazaki.
Thank you very much. Mr. Aladdin?
gelek spas. Yani dixwazim bersiva mamoste Cafer Şeyhülislam dest pê bikim. So starting to answer Cafer Şeyhülislam, the difference between Sweden and Germany, why there is a big gap between these two in practice about the number of Kurdish students. So I'm not really an expert, or I haven't made any research, but I've just been in both of them a few times, and I have friends there, and during our conversation and my observation comes as, yes, as firstly, as you mentioned, there is a state sport. This is one difference, but this is not actually the biggest reason. You know, we need to understand the difference between integration and assimilation. So some countries or some communities take integration as an assimilation. So while they are integrating with that country in one way, they assimilate themselves, or the state, while they are integrating that community, they assimilate them as well. So Kurds in Sweden are well integrated. They are well integrated, but not assimilated. So Kurds in Germany is little different in that case. And Kurds in Sweden, what I can see, they are well educated as well. Like they continue, because the question rises from here. While we have more than over 1 million Kurds living in Germany and having 2,000 students taking Kurdish lesson, but we have less than 100,000 Kurds living in Sweden, and we have more than over 10,000 students taking Kurdish lessons, or more than 250 teachers exist in Sweden. So Kurds in Germany are more busy. They are well busy. They are into the economy. So they try to, every Kurd in Germany would love to have their own business. When you are more in economy, when you are more related with money issue, that is how much you will get away or far from your identity or what's happening, or even so the language is involved as well. So Kurds in Sweden has got different background as well, because with state sport, so it become like a culture. So when everybody speaks Kurdish in Kurdish community, of course, from that person passes to the other person. Like, for example, in UK, integration has been taken as an assimilation. So yes, the Turkish state is more powerful, which I gave many examples in Germany, but Turkish state is not that powerful in Sweden. So this is another big difference. So in UK, when Turkish language as a modern language is a GCSE language and a A-level language, and of course many families will want their children to choose that, because these will affect their children's future while they're going to university. Like, what is their grade in GCSE or A-level? These will affect their education, and they are already a Turkish speaker. So instead going to learn German as a foreign language, they learn Turkish as a foreign language, as a GCSE language. So that's one reason they choose. And the other one, there is a term they've been created in UK. So not to call Kurds Kurd, they call them Turkish speaking community. So we are Turkish speaking community. So they include Turks, Kurds, and Cypriot Turks. But this is, again, not to call us Kurd, this is another term for us. So all councils or state departments use this term. Even our community use this term, Turkish speaking community. So this is another, maybe you can speak or go into it for 2 hours, but this is the reality. Or political organizations are different in both countries, like in Sweden and Germany. Yes, in Germany, Kurds are well organized, but politically, they are more aware, like you can see more demonstration and more things. But Kurds in Sweden, they are more organized culturally as well. This is another thing different that I observe. And coming to Iskender, it's like the solution to this, and also there was another friend asked in chat section, so about this Turkification in diaspora. The solution is not easy, really. So one solution in Sorani side would be KRG go into it and have more support to Kurdish diaspora in language-wise, have sport, fund the schools, open the schools. This is one of their duty and job, that responsibility that they should do, which they haven't done until now. But there isn't a big problem with Sorani-speaking community Kurds, because at home they do speak Kurdish, but the problem is with Kurmanji speaker, and mostly by Kurds from Baku. That's who doesn't take it seriously. So in this case, we don't have a state really to do the similar what Turkey is doing. So then we have hundreds of community centers, organizations. So they need to really take it more seriously and work harder in language, more than, yes, a lot of things are happening in Kurdistan, and Kurdish organization, political organization are very busy with being an answer to what's happening in Kurdistan, but also they really need to think about the community they are first-hand responsible of in diaspora. And there was one more question which I can't really, we don't have a time go into it. They want us to talk more about the education system in Rojava, but as a solution to what that black picture I draw, actually Rojava, what's happening in Rojava is in this case is a hope for the future of Kurmanji in this Kurmanji dialect. Like as I showed you, 102 books being prepared in different topics, and tomorrow we will have let's say Kurmanji in different tools in technology. So this is really a hope, and it is a hope to this dark picture I have drawn for Kurds in diaspora. Thank you, Mithat.
One thing before you go, please.
I'm not going anywhere.
I mean, the question.
If I go, all the meeting will stop.
Yes, the question that was raised to Ronayi, she mentioned, yes, it doesn't have a name. It's called NA. I don't know if that means not any, but but they ask if you have a platform on YouTube. Yes, Master Aladdin has a YouTube platform where he uploads his current lessons there. I think it's called Mamoste or Mamoste.
So online Kurdish, it calls online Kurdish lessons. So during the lockdown, we, as Mithat mentioned, and he was part of this plan and project as well. So for 3 months, we provided online Kurdish Kurmanji lessons, and there was quite very wide attention from all around the world. And every lesson were also uploaded to YouTube. They are there, but I will keep, yes, Mamosterona, he's very busy, but I have time for that. So I will be producing more videos, and I will upload them on YouTube. And in the future, so we had 4 classes, and now they are over for this week, but by next, in September, we will restart. So hopefully we will have more students in this case.
Thank you. Actually, with regards to the time issue, we're well behind. We should have finished now, but I just checked the group who is still live here with us. The big majority of them are here. I know Michael Chayat has another very important input to do, and I can see on my screen 4 hands raised. I just don't see who they are.
Yeah, maybe we can start with
Or
yeah.
there is Daya Ubaba, Rasul Chelik, Roj Ghaderi, and Sheikhul Islam. So maybe start with Roj. And then Daya Ubaba.
But I'll have to be a bit more strict now. Please just keep it very short. Just straight to the point. Your question, nothing else. We don't have more time. I'm sorry. Really sorry.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to ask Mr. Michael Chayat a question. What motivated you to research and learn the Kurdish language?
He has answered this question in many platforms. I've witnessed to some of them, but
I do know.
Michael.
Still, I want to ask him in this chat too. That maybe people haven't heard about him.
Thank you.
All right.
We'll go one-to-one. I just don't know.
Okay.
I have to control the time better now. So, Michael, please. We can't hear you, Mamaster.
1 minute.
Can you hear me
now?
now?
You can talk. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. It was Kurdish music and dance that first got me interested in the Kurds. I'm an avid folk dancer. I do dances from the Balkans. My favorite are Macedonian, but also I've been promoting Kurdish dances as Kurdish, not as Turkish dances, which is the problem that we have to deal with in the folk dance world. But one of the things I've been listening to the past couple of weeks is these wonderful modern Kurdish songs, which include some traditional stuff, and some of them are modern and creative. And I mean, I'm excited all over again, and in love with Kurdish again even more, just by listening. While I'm sitting there doing my library work at home, I'm listening to all of these wonderful songs by Selbustari and Roshan Cheliker and Navid Zerdi, and it's just every day I look forward to going to work so that I can sit there and listen to that while I'm working. And I think this also partially answers, like, these people think that Kurdish is backwards. This is stuff that's being created now. It's modern, it's in touch with the world today, and it's also very Kurdish. So I want to pass my excitement about it on to other people. If I may, I'd like to say something very briefly about the Kurds in Sweden.
If you could keep it brief, please. Yeah, thank you.
They do. The problem there and everywhere is the young generation. Yes, they speak Kurdish. They chose to speak Kurdish rather than Turkish. But when the last time I was there, which was about 2 years ago, I was visiting with a Kurdish family, and they have 4 children who speak Swedish, and they speak English like an American. And they had some education in Sweden and Kurdish, and the first sentence that one of their daughters said had a grammatical error in it. She said, like, "es ditem" instead of "mendit" or something like that. So, and that saddened me, because it shows that, yeah, they force them to go to like Sunday school, and the kids are fighting them tooth and nail because they're not really interested in it. And they know the language more or less when they hear it, but they're not active users of it. They're not writing in it. I mean, another thing that we have to deal with is the future of this language, passing it on to the young generation, the next generation, so that it will survive. We don't want it to die out in 20 years. We're not here to make Ankara happy. We're not here to carry out their policies. And I'm very worried about, I mean, there is more education, and this Zoom is a way to get past borders. But first we have to train a cadre of teachers who are all on the same page and have the same information, and then pass that on to the next generation. And just very briefly, I know I would like you to invite me to give a talk about this in one of your forums another month. But I would like
yes,
to see
yes, promise. Yes, promise.
But in two sentences, my dream is for all Kurdish children to be educated in both Kurmanji and in Sorani, and in both the Latin and in the Arabic orthography, not just alphabet, but orthography with a simple one-on-one correspondence between the two of them, which is how I teach it. My students for Sorani, they read it in the Arabic script, and then I'm training them how to transcribe that into the Latin orthography, which is what we use in the library world. Anyway, more on that when you invite me to give a long talk. I don't want to be a pig and used up too much time.
Don't forget your promise, yeah, Mama Stan?
Just let me know when.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sure.
I have a question here in chat from a committee member of ours, and he's from Rojava. So I don't want to make him further angry. I'll take floor to ask that, if that's okay. It is a big question. He says, I have a question to the panel members. I wonder if it's possible at the moment for the Kurdish linguists to work on establishing a standard Kurdish language. I had a similar question when I waived my right of chair to ask question, which was, do you think it's possible one day for all four parts of Kurdistan to be able to speak with each other in Kurdish, whatever you call it, Sormanji or Zasormanji or Zasormanji, how, I don't know. Will there be any possibility in a foreseen day for them to communicate in Kurdish? This is linked to that. Kakazad, I will have to waive your second question. We don't have time, sorry. Is there anybody who wants to take mic to answer this? Maybe Mama Hewa. I think Farangis might not be here now because she did tell me that she had 2 hours. She had something else to do.
She is here.
Oh, she's still here. So whoever wants to take floor. Mama Hewa, we'll start with you, please.
Actually, it is a very difficult question, and it is not possible nowadays. So in the future, it may be, but it is very difficult currently because each state has its policy, and each part of Kurdistan has also its policy. As you see, our political visions are different, and everything is different. Even in southern Kurdistan, we cannot deal with it. So when you think about Greater Kurdistan, it would be difficult in the near future. We also hope.
Maybe Zoom and such platforms will allow it, the dream to come true.
Inshallah.
Anybody else wants to have a take on this? Mr. Ronayi?
Well, the question is that if it is possible one day to unite all the dialects?
Not dialects, some sort of common ground for the Kurds to, what they call it Sormanji now for Sorani and Kurmanji. I don't know.
For now, I think it's impossible, and I don't think it's necessary as well. I think Kurdish society, Kurdish people should be multi-dialects. What's the case about it? If we have the statute, a political statute, we can make it possible to raise multi dialects children as well. Why killing the dialects? This is my answer.
I was thinking sort of keep the both of them. Obviously keep the locality.
Well,
and then...
when you make a mixture of the dialects, it means that you will put some of the characteristics of the languages outside the issue. You cannot include all the characteristics of 2 dialects to make one, I think.
Okay, thank you very much.
I really, in this case, just shortly,
Yes,
I
please.
don't agree in one case with Ronayi. We really need to understand each other. So the division, okay, between Kurds is political. That's one case. But we have a lot of Kurds in London, let's say, in the same, with the same political view as me. But as I see, the Kurds in London see themselves closer to Turks in London rather than Kurds in South. And the biggest reason is language. They do not understand each other. So language will unite us. So what Michael said is the most important thing. Maybe like we have Rojava, we have Bashur at the moment. So if they had Kurmanji lessons next to Sorani, and if in Rojava they had Sorani, so we didn't have to kill one dialect or destroy one dialect, but the society would, I think they themselves would create one, as you know, when you go to Duhok, when people speaks in Bahdinan, but you can understand that it is kind of Sorani and Bahdini is mixed. So the society themselves will create a language when they learn both of them, but we really need work on this. Is quite deep issue between Kurds, because there are a lot of other issues between Kurds, but hopefully again Rojava, as I said, will be the bright face of this unity as well.
Actually, I just want to add something here, because I'm teaching Kurmanji at Koya University. So my students, most of them, they are learning Kurmanji very well, and some of them, they speak Kurmanji as well. At least they understand to a great extent. But the problem is that we do not need to kill a dialect. It is a wrong thinking, I think, because each language each nation need a language to be spoken. Language is changing. I mean, if you read Kurmanji 100 years ago, it is very different from the current Kurmanji. It is true for Central Kurdish as well. So we need a language policy to unite it, at least the terminology and things like that. As our friends said, in Rojava and in Bakur, education in Kurdish started during the peace process. The wrong step is there are some terminologies in Bashur. They do not need to create a new one. Just look what we did or what other Kurds in Rojava did and use it. Why do you want to create a new one? It is, I mean, it is very, I don't understand why each one wants to be very Kurmanji or very Sorani or very, we don't need that. We can speak in Kurdish, so it can be any dialect. Thanks.
Yeah, I say Aladdin tends to agree with me on that. Probably this is the psychology of diaspora Kurds. When we are in diaspora, we in everyday life we see Kurds of all four parts of Kurdistan, and when you cannot communicate in actual Kurdish, whichever dialect it is a bit frustrating. So maybe when you live in mainland, in Bakur or Bashur in this case, you have the need of it a bit less than us here. Farangis, did you want to take on this, or if not, I can see still two hands raised there. I don't know who they are. My friends will help me. Would you like to have a take on?
By the way, Mithat, Farangis, shall I unmute her? Actually, she can unmute herself, but she's not unmuting. Maybe she's not on the computer at the moment.
Okay, that's fine.
So just one more sentence to that. Dohok experience is a solution. Okay, the society itself has solved this problem. So there is no problem that someone in Dohuk won't understand someone in Hawler, or someone in Hawler won't understand someone in Dohuk. So they have sorted these questions. So the linguist, the Kurdish linguist, needs to take this example further. So that's so simple in this case.
Sormanji, you mean, huh?
Whatever you call it.
Okay. We really need to finish.
We have some
you may take Mamusta Rasul Geik
okay.
Taya and Baba is also waiting.
Mamusta Rasul.
Merhaba, hi everyone. Do I need to turn off the camera or?
Turn on the camera, please. We want to see you if possible.
Okay, yeah, if possible, because after staying a long quarantine, hi to everyone. I'd like to highlight a few points, and thanks to Hewa teacher for encouraging me and motivating me, because he knows me. We have worked together for the time. I would like to first start with the language standardization point. By the way, I'm also working at Mardin Artuklu University, both in Kurdish and English departments as language instructor. So I'm also writing books, and I've just written a book about teaching Kurdish theory about that, which was really something I focus on. One point that I'd like to really highlight, we give decisions, but I suppose and I believe that the decisions should be based on the majority of the usage, and the people, how people use things should not be ignored. That's very, very important point. Of course, you know, there are so many linguistic aspects and points like language contact, like borrowing and many other things, and they're of great importance. Of course, Ronayi mentioned that we don't have an authority for language, so that's why there are so many discussions, and it is right. And you know, the more a language is used, the easier decisions might be given about that. That's one point. And the other point that I suppose Mamusa Jafar Sheikhul Islami, he mentioned about the improvements in Sweden. I have two cousins living there, one of them as a linguist and the other one as a social scientist. I asked them, and also I did some kind of research about the question why Sweden gives a lot of place for language. And I came across really with very, very interesting point. It was like this, that Sweden has a small population of Swedish, so that's why they would like to, in a way, control the future of the world by their policies. And according to that policy, they try to contact the people who have been like displaced from political parties, from governments, and they got like resident permission and other things. But the most important thing about them, they were all collected on a Swedish island, and they were educated, they were sponsored, and they were, I mean, in a way, they got some support so that they can help the country. So the point, the support behind the country is that basically politics for the future. That was one thing. And the other point, as you know, there's so much discussion about bilingual education, the language of standardization, or shall we like use the Aramaic alphabet or Latin alphabet? You know, that there are always so much thing that goes on. But one of my friends, American linguist, Patrick Taylor, who is also one of the lexicographer of the American Heritage Dictionary, we worked together in Mardin. We were office mates. Right now he's in the United States. And he always mentioned that he was just talking, you Kurds, you are always ethnocentric. You always think that you are the basic of the world and many things is going to happen according to yourself. So about that. So he
Mama Sarah, if you could keep it a bit short, please.
I'm about to finish. So he always suggested that there are so many answers all over the world or in the literature. Why don't you all go and look at the other examples, compare them, and then maybe adjust or adapt them to your reality about language? So that was also one thing that he always mentioned. So I'm not going to make it short. Thanks, Mithat, for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, Dayu Baba, please.
Good afternoon and good morning to everyone. We just wanted to participate in this amazing presentation, so thank you very much for you guys for organizing. We are a young couple. Myself, I'm from Hawler, and my husband is from Qamishlo. We created an amazing platform which answers some of the professors and teachers' requests in carry on the Kurdish language to the next generation. We recently had a baby and we really struggled in finding the right content to teach not only Kurmanji but also Sorani to our child. So what we did during the quarantine, we created an amazing content on YouTube. You can obviously follow us, you can find us. It's called Dayo Baba. We use ourselves to speak the language and to teach from the basic, for example, alphabets, numbers, colors. We will be producing animals, days of the week, months. Us as a couple, we really struggled. We were brought up in the UK and we didn't have access to Kurdish schools, etc. So what we did, we created these content so that young parents like us can carry on the beautiful language of ours, whether it's from different dialects, different cities, to our next generation. And to answer Professor Michael or Mamusa Michael, that he made a great point, is that younger generation is not using the language to its advantage, and even us, we didn't have access to YouTube or content or schools. So we've taken it to our own hands to try and create something for the next generation. And we've had messages from all over the world, America, Canada, Australia, that nothing is available for the kids. There's so much content in English, in Turkish, in loads of different languages to carry on different languages, but there's nothing available for kids for our generation. So what we wanted to ask was that, is there some sort of source available where we can go back to as a reference so that we can check the right spellings? Because we've come across so many different spellings in one word. I'll give you an example. For example, the rangi Z. Laknama Z, it's spelled one way. However, in Kurmanji and in Sorani and different, it's spelled different ways. So we find it really hard to try and find the right spelling. And to go back to Mamusta Michael's, our content is in Latin, Kurmanji, and it's also in Arabic Sorani written, so that we target both audiences, Sorani and Kurmanji, but at the same time both written and in Latin, and also Kurdish alphabet, which is very similar to the Arabic.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. And finally, Dilrast, I'm hoping that this will be the last question. Dilrast, the floor is yours, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mithat. I will make it short. I just want to thank you for organizing this Zoom session. I was really enjoying it to listen to all participants of this amazing presentation. And I just wanted to underline the idea to continue doing these Zoom meetings, especially in this time where we probably all have more time for Zoom and for other formats like this, as we are staying home. And I really enjoyed to listen to more than 3 hours to topics towards the Kurdish language and the dialects, and it was really, really interesting. Please continue doing this important work, and I really, really hope we will see more of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, I see no raised hand here, which is a good sign or bad. But I'd like to take a couple of minutes to advertise about us, Kurd-Akad. Although the word advertising might sound negative, we've established here with great enthusiasm here in the UK. And as I said, we've, as a principle, we've tried to stick to the, bring all the voices and colors of all 4 parts of Kurdistan, at least the 4 main parts. It's from the Zoom platform today, it seems like we're still on the right track. I've seen people from all 4 parts of Kurdistan. Thank you very, very much for all the presenters and for others that have their input, like Mamoste Michael, Mamoste Jafar, Mamoste Ali, all of you. Thank you very much. We have a, website called minhaq.info/mal-kurdi, forwarded by a friend of ours, and there are many useful sources on Kurdish language. That's again minhaq.info minhaj with C. .info.
I just sent to everyone in chat section. It is the website I show to everyone. It's curriculum for schools in Rojava, so they have all the resources in Kurdish, Kurmanji with different topics.
Perfect. It was forwarded in our chat group by Mayday.
To everyone.
Yeah, so that's perfect. And I'll finally check our chat group to see if there is something very important.
By the way, Berzan says, I really, really don't like saying Arabic Sorani, that he has written in chat section. I don't know who mentioned Arabic Sorani, but
I haven't come across. Was it you, Mamoste Hewa?
Of course not. No, the alphabet is came from Arabic, and it is just a fact. We cannot change it.
Yes.
I mean, how the Latin Kurmanji alphabet came from Latin. I mean, we cannot change this fact. It is not our, I mean, it is just a fact.
Right. Well, once again, thank you all very, very much. Unless my...
I'm sorry, Mithat, how can we share our slides here or by email?
It'll be shared on YouTube. I will direct
the slides.
To you.
I mean,
we could share the slides on our webpage if it's okay for you.
That's great. I'll send you.
Yeah.
Someone said.
So we can send here the webpage address so people can go there.
Sure.
Mama Aladdin, there is a question by Khalid Williams. I think you know her, maybe our Welsh friend, but we can answer that later. She says, is there a Kurdish language movement campaigning in the UK? Well, yes, and you are at the center of it.
Unfortunately, it's not an organized campaign, but that's what we need. It is an answer to Iskandar's question as well. This is the solution. What is the solution? We really need a strong campaign in UK, mostly. In everywhere, in diaspora, but mostly in UK.
And by the way, we just opened a central Kurdish language teaching course online, but unfortunately, it is not free. So if someone wanted, she or he may contact us. It is written by Koya University, and I'll teach.
Okay, we note Mamoste Michael's promise for our upcoming events. We might bother Mamoste Jafar as well, just saying here.
It would be great.
And many others. So thank you all very, very much again for tonight. It's been ridiculously late, but it seems like people have enjoyed with the responses and all that, and the fact that the majority is still here in the Zoom pool. So unless my fellow friends in our committee members have anything to add or say, we will close here.
Maybe we can unmute everyone and have a clap and goodbye.
Yes, good idea.
So just a minute. So now everyone can unmute themselves. So if they can unmute and have a clap, and we will finish. Thanks to Kurd-Akad.
Thank you all. Shabash.